Welcome back to today's episode of the Art and Yoga and Wellness podcast. In today's video, I'm going to be taking you through some questions that some of our followers and listeners sent in. I talk about why I don't bike anymore and I only treadmill. I talk about my opinion of oat milk. I go over the different types of fats that I will eat and won't eat according to what my body likes, and so much more. So head on over to today's video and we'll go through some questions and answers from my audience. Welcome back to the Arden Yoga and Wellness podcast with Kira Whitaker. So today, you guys, we are going to go through some questions that I got off of one of the Instagram polls. It's actually been multiple ones because I've saved some back for when I wanted to do one of these episodes. And I just kind of randomly pulled what I could. There were quite a few. I tried to pull the ones that I feel like have come up the most, ones that were fun, ones that I felt like pertain to topics that I talk about on the podcast. And we're just going to go through them today. It's not all of them. I can definitely do more of these if you guys like this, but because you guys gave some questions, I definitely wanted to honor the time that you took to type stuff into that box and to give some feedback. One thing I do want to say before I dive in is none of this is prescriptive. So anytime I give any sort of insight and advice that's specific, it's always in a one-on-one coaching, client relationship and setting, as well as yoga with those clients. Things I talk about on here, they're ideas. They're just to get your wheels turning, but none of it is saying that you need to definitively do this. So that's me just kind of putting that out there first. So none of these are in a specific order. I'm just going to kind of go from the top and we'll go through it. I'll give some answers. You'll get to see what other people are curious about and we'll just take it from there. So the first thing that we got, and I've gotten this a lot, throughout the years, questions about boundaries. This one says how to implement boundaries with family members. So I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. My expertise is more in the area of behavior change and how can we get people to change their behaviors, the way they do things. So I would say to this question, first of all, do we understand what boundaries are? So a boundary is, not just a line in the sand. It goes a little bit deeper than that. And so typically when we set a boundary, it should be for ourselves, right? What am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? I think a great place to start is to just have knowledge about boundaries, explore your history with boundaries. I did a lot of really great work with my therapist, especially the last few years, in conversations about boundaries. Also, in my personal opinion, and I think the sales of this book and just the longevity of this book is a testimony to its insight and its support and all of the value that it holds. There's a book, it's called Boundaries. It's by Dr. Townsend and I think it's Henry Cloud. Cloud is his last name. If you just type in boundaries anywhere that they sell a book or have an audiobook, this one will come up. It's great. It's one of those books that I have reread over the years because in different instances, in different seasons and in different relational struggles, I'll pull something in a reread that I didn't get the first time. So I'm a huge fan of doing a deep dive into boundaries and making sure that you're really, really clear and informed and have an understanding of what boundaries truly are. Because oftentimes it can be something different than what we've kind of maybe thought or seen on social media or wherever. So definitely that's one of my recommendations. I've recommended that book to friends, even clients, because again, I'm not a licensed clinical counselor, licensed clinical social worker, a psychologist. So I don't counsel people. So that's a great book. Next question. Thoughts on oat milk. So I work with a lot of clients on I don't give advice on nutrition because I'm not a dietitian, but I obviously have a pretty vast knowledge of what nourishes the body, what doesn't, health and wellness. That's kind of in the umbrella of what I do, especially in health coaching. So I guess my opinion or my question would be, why is one consuming oat milk? So if you're drinking oat milk because you have been informed that it is a healthier or better alternative than, let's say, almond milk or even cow's milk, my challenge to that would be oat milk it's a starch. So you're essentially drinking starch, which is going to spike your blood sugar. I typically, when I'm working with people that are wanting to focus in on their nourishment or their relationship with food, we're typically a lot of times having to figure out the relationship with sugar and carbohydrates. And so I would just say, if it's just because you love the taste of oat milk, then get that in your coffee. If you're putting oat milk in your coffee, or if you're making your smoothies with oat milk, or you're having a bowl of granola with oat milk, I would just want to make sure that we're aware of what is in the oat milk, meaning it's oats, which means it's a starch, versus almond milk comes from an almond. It's going to be a little bit different. I personally don't drink oat milk. I've always kind of been like, that's just not where I want to get the majority of my starches from. I kind of want to pick and choose. I want to make it worth it. And that's just not worth it to me. If somebody else is like, I love it, I'm willing to not eat, the toast this morning or whatever, because I want that. Absolutely. So I think you just have to kind of go, okay, am I aware of what's in it? Am I aware of the ingredients? And then also, why am I drinking this? We have all different types of milk in our home. The reason for that is 2 people in my household are severely lactose intolerant. So cow's milk, dairy, soft cheeses are not an option for them. Whereas Ori, our son, and I are just, we really don't have any allergies to anything. And so we do fine on cow's milk. I don't drink cow's milk. It'll flare my skin up. But I don't have any, lactose or GI issues with it. And neither does my son. Whereas our daughter, as soon as I got done nursing her, which I nursed her for a really long time, till she was 2. We switched her over to almond milk because I just didn't want her going from me to cow's milk. That was a long time ago. And luckily we had that transition for her because she's got a pretty lactose intolerant, GI tract. So I would just say, you don't have to do cow's milk at all. I'm not saying you have to do any milk. I don't drink any milk. It's just not really something that matters that much in my diet. I'll throw it in a smoothie in the summertime, but outside of that, it just doesn't really have a big placeholder in my daily intake. So I would just, look at your oat milk and just ask yourself some questions about it. Do you still bike, or do you only do the treadmill now? I like this question. I like to talk about movement. So there were years and years and years where this is probably more like 2020, 21. I was in my earlier 30s, mid 30s, and I realized that I just needed more cardio. Well, because of my back injuries and a lot of other injuries I have from my previous career I didn't get paid for it, but as a competitive horseback rider, running, even jumping jacks, just high intensity stuff does not work for me because it hurts my joints. And so I definitely am aware of the movements that my body doesn't like, but I also knew that I needed more cardio. And so we got a stationary recumbent bike. So it's actually the kind of bike you sit, almost like how I'm sitting in a chair right now. If you're watching, you sit in it. Because my back, I can't do like a pellet, not specifically talking about Peloton, but just a regular bike. I can ride a bike for a bit. Like we have mountain bikes on our farm that we'll ride, but I can't do a 30 or 45 minute ride because my back, that position just doesn't work for me. And so we got the recumbent bike because we just thought, okay, this is low impact. Everybody can do it. Even the kids can do it in the wintertime when they're not outside as much. And I loved it. And I also started to feel, I felt really strong in my legs. I loved that I could get my heart rate up. The reason that I don't use that bike anymore and I got the treadmill is the way that, the bike works is I was getting a lot of strength and I was working my quads and my hip flexors a lot. So the front of my leg was doing the majority of the work. I was definitely getting the cardio benefits. So my heart rate was going up, sweating, all of that. But I noticed that I wasn't feeling as strong in my back, hamstrings, and my glutes. And so that was something where at the same time I was on my computer more. I was finishing up my time with Vanderbilt. It was also coming out of the pandemic. So I was doing a lot more Zoom calls. I was seeing all of my clients for a little bit, for a couple of months on Zoom. And so I was sitting more. And so the way I always think about my movement, and I do this with my clients all the time, is we're trying to find some sort of balance, right? So if you're somebody who is sitting a lot, you might not need your movements to be your workout, air quotes, to also be sitting because we're trying to give you the movements that we're trying to give you different movements than what you're already getting, right? I was sitting a lot. And I was also noticing that the front of my leg was getting a lot stronger than the back of my leg. And so I'm just a huge fan of walking. There's a reason that we are bipedal mammals. The reason we can stand up the way we can is because we have really, really muscular glutes that help support the back of the body. It also helps us push off, so pushing forward. And I wasn't getting that. So last year, I think it was about a year ago, it could have been the Christmas before, we got a treadmill. And it's a really good treadmill, and it can go up to a 15% incline. I don't run, but I do that now, and I'll crank the incline up. I did a whole podcast episode, I think 3 episodes ago, where I go through my entire workout if you want to go to that one. But the reason that I like it so much and I feel so much more even in my body is because I'm not only working the front of my leg, but I also am getting the push. So I'm having to push off the back of my legs, use my glutes, use my hamstrings because I'm walking and I'm walking up a hill essentially. So it's not that I don't love the bike. I mean, I have clients that I definitely recommend biking to because it just makes sense for them. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it's one of those, it depends. I'm not biking anymore. We still have it. I could go back to it. I love the idea of if for some reason let's say I have, a near ankle injury or something flares up. I love that I have that as an alternative. I can still do something to get some good movement in and get my heart rate up. I just feel a lot stronger in my lower body and in my back now that I've switched over to walking instead of biking. So that's my spiel on that. Next one. Are you vegetarian or do you follow a certain diet? And it has it in quotes. No, I don't. I have really had to I do this. I'm constantly almost doing this like self-inventory about this. I'm constantly evolving my relationship with food. It's always changing. I'm really, really big on experimenting. Because what worked for me at a certain point in my life with, 25-year-old hormones and newborns and, nursing and doesn't work for me now. And so I've really tried to make sure that I have enough structure to where I feel accountable and it feels doable, and I don't spend too much headspace on what I'm going to eat. I hate taking up too much time and thought about what I'm going to eat. So I like to keep it simple. But I also want to have enough trust in myself and my relationship with food. This is me personally speaking, not really professionally, saying this. This is my personal journey with food and where I'm at. I want to have enough trust in myself to know that I don't have to have too many parameters, that I'm safe and I can be trusted in my relationship with nourishing myself. So I don't have a certain, I guess, again, air quotes, diet that I follow. I have definitely, through a lot of exploration and playing around with food over the years, figured out what my body likes and what it doesn't. Kind of how close to the edge of rebellion on holidays and things like that, how close I can flirt on that line. Like, for example, I know that I do not do well with a lot of animal fat in my diet. Some people can, some people, they feel really good. My body hates it. My gallbladder will flare up. I can feel it in my body. So I do a lot better with animal fats. So I do better with avocado and coconut oil, and I do really well with nuts and almond milk. But my body does not respond well to animal fat. Does that mean I'm vegetarian? No, but I've isolated a couple things in the way I eat, going, I know that this doesn't work well for me right now. It could change, because there were years and, earlier in life where that wasn't an issue for me. I definitely tried to buy as much, especially meats and food, locally as I can. I want to support local farmers in my community. And I also want to make sure that anything that we take in that's an animal product is treated as humanely as possible. You guys know I have animals. I think I've got, horses and a cow and a dog and chickens. So that's really important to me. But no, I don't have a specific way that I eat necessarily. And I'm also happy to go, I can do a whole episode on this if you guys want me to talk more about food, and also kind of from a traditional medicine standpoint and in yoga and health coaching. All right, I think I've got time for a couple more. Vitamins and supplements. What vitamins do you take and how do you know what to take? Another really great question. This is me. I mean, obviously I would need to see somebody's labs and do a full intake before I could dive into this specifically. So it's one of those, it depends. But I will let you know that a few years ago, I was just not feeling good energy-wise. I was having a lot of brain fog. And one thing I decided to do, instead of just getting more supplements, I do think that supplements can definitely bridge the gap in our diets and with hormones and other things. I don't think that people need to just go and blindly do it. I think that people need to have some sort of medical support or a health coach or a nutritionist or a dietitian. I would not just walk into a store and blindly start taking things. But something that I'm a huge fan of is just getting lab work done. A few years back when I was not feeling well, I did my hormones first. So I wanted to see what my hormones were doing. And then the plan was, if my hormones panned out and everything looked good, then I would see if there were any food sensitivities, and also if there were any absorption issues, meaning, am I taking things and eating things, but my body's just not able to absorb the nutrients. So I went down the hormone route first and checked those boxes. I figured some things out really, really quickly. I didn't need necessarily to do a full vitamin panel and mineral panel and all of that. However, that's the way I kind of like to think of it, is one of the most, in my personal and humble opinion, one of the best things about Western medicine is we don't have to blindly guess. We can draw labs. We can do an ultrasound, we can order an x-ray, we can do an MRI, and we can see exactly what's going on in the body. We can see exactly what's going on in the blood. We can check a hormone panel, and then we can take action and get a plan going according to what we see. So anytime somebody asks me questions like that, I say, who is your primary care provider? Let's talk to them about getting some labs drawn. Why not? So if you're wondering about vitamins and supplements and what you need to take, and if you need this, I would say don't go into it blindly. Don't spend your money on just throwing a bunch of random stuff in your system. I would get some lab work done first. All right. I got time for one more. Clients for yoga is what I wrote. What's this question? Are you still taking yoga clients? I'm not right now. I only see yoga clients one-on-one. I've been that way for probably 7 years now. I don't think I've taught a group class for a long time. Last year, it was last summer, I drastically decreased my client load for yoga because I just got to where I was seeing so many clients, it didn't feel sustainable. I was seeing like 25 a week plus my health coaching clients, which is just kind of an absurd amount. So what I have on my list right now is I have 8 slots a week for yoga clients, and they are all existing clients that I've had for 100 years. I've got one client who's been with me for 12 years, and I could just cry even saying that. The fact that I have people that have been with me this long is just mind blowing and such an honor and privilege. And I love them so much. And so I just don't have it in my schedule to take on new clients. And typically if I have for yoga, I am going to be taking on a couple clients for health coaching. But typically, let's say one of my clients is off the schedule. I typically have a client from way back when that wants that spot. So the reason I don't ever, send emails or post and say taking yoga clients is because I just don't have the availability for that right now. That could change, but as of right now, and especially first quarter of 2024, I won't be able to take anybody new. All right. One more, because this one's an easy one. Favorite workout clothes. This is something, y'all, that has really changed in the last few months, because historically I will kind of just pick and choose, and I'm not married to one brand. It's kind of whatever works. I have always loved Athleta. I love Athleta. I think their stuff wears so well. I am in my workout clothes from 6 a.m. and I don't get out of them till typically around 9:30 at night. And I'm going to teach yoga in them. I'm going to do coaching sessions in them. Then I'm going to work out in them. Sometimes I will horseback ride in them. I'm going to haul horse feed in them. I'm going to cook dinner. I'm going to drive. My workout clothes get a lot of wear and tear. And so I love Athleta. Most recently, I did fall back in love with Lulu. I went and got some of their gear, and it fits well. It really does. I'm all about, does it actually perform? Can I weightlift in it? Can I also get in a down dog in it? Can I do all of my different yoga poses? And their stuff, I think, wears really well. I like Gap for their leggings. Gap Body, I think the price point's really good. It wears well. And then I like that off-brand. It's not off-brand, but it's Dick's it's like a Dick's brand, their brand of stuff. I like that, just for like to wear to soccer fields and stuff. So again, I'm trying to think of other stuff. I also really, because we like to hike and do a lot of stuff, especially when we're in the mountains, Patagonia. My husband would attest to that. Patagonia is our favorite outdoor gear. And then I have certain brands that I love for horseback riding. Ariat's one of my favorites. Their gear is always great to ride in. But I think those are the main ones. And I've really gotten to where I'm really wanting, especially over the holidays, to minimize my workout gear, because I have so much and I wear it 7 days a week. But I want to just have those amazing key pieces that I love and I feel so good in. And I want to get rid of everything else. Almost like a capsule wardrobe, if you will. But yeah, those are my main ones. And another thing about Athleta that and I don't have any affiliation with them. You can sponsor me if you want to, Athleta. But I really love that they're not only is their stuff great for working out, hiking, whatever you want to do movement wise, they've got really, really good, like from the mat to streetwear stuff. But I love that you can look in their catalog and online and you can see any and every body shape. They really, really make sure that, especially as females, that we have something for you, and regardless of your height, age, shape, size, our stuff is made for you. And so I love that they make that known, and that's the heart of why they're making stuff. So that's kind of my shout out to them. Okay, you guys, I think that's all I have time for today because we're definitely running over. I try to keep things kind of short and sweet on here because I know there's so many podcasts that are hours long, and I don't have time for that. So those were the main questions that I got. I'll be sure to do this again because this is fun. I love answering questions for you guys. I just sometimes don't do a great job of screenshotting them and then keeping them in my phone. So sometimes I've lost them. So I tried to do a better job of categorizing them and cataloging them this week so that I could get this out to you guys. So I hope that was fun. I hope it answered some of your questions. I hope it gave some of you some things to think about. And next time we do one of those boxes, you'll send me your questions because I definitely want to hear from you. And that is all for today's episode of the Art and Yoga and Wellness podcast. Bye, guys.